Mental Health Monday. I hope you're all doing wonderfully on this Monday or whatever day you happen to be watching this. So today we are talking about positivity, and it is definitely something that we hear all the time and in the context of cancer, and it's definitely something that has become almost stereotypical or like a joke almost in the context of cancer. It's like something that someone says when they don't know what else to say when they hear that you have cancer. And like for so many of us, it is the last thing that we want to hear. And especially right after diagnosis or right after a recurrence or any particularly difficult point, of which there are many on this journey, it can feel like you will never feel positive about anything ever again. And you sometimes really don't want to. It sometimes can feel good to hold on to that rage, if that is the negative emotion that you're feeling. But, I feel like positivity kind of gets a bad rap as something that we almost roll our eyes at. And that is because when you look at lists of, people who achieved radical remissions, who beat the odds, who were told that they weren't going to survive, and they did, when you look at the things that they list as major factors in their recovery, almost always staying positive or having a positive mindset or having a hopeful outlook, something to do with positivity, gratitude, hope, joy, something like that is almost always on the list. And for me, even though, we'd like to dismiss it because it's so much easier sometimes to stay in those places of negativity, it's impossible for me to ignore when it keeps coming up over and over as something that people who've done it, who have beat the odds, something that they consistently list as a major factor. And I just can't ignore that. And of course, positivity, played a big role in my own healing and recovery as well. So I wanted to talk today a bit about positivity, what staying positive, actually means to me and actually requires in my eyes, and hopefully change some minds from, at first seeing positivity as something that might be flimsy or cheesy or stereotypical or like not at all a helpful thing to hear. Hopefully, by the end of the video, you can see that it can be one of the most personally powerful elements to healing. So let's get to it. So the first is the more obvious element, and that is that, the thoughts that we think shape how we feel. And then how we feel in turn often dictates or at least impacts the actions that we take. And so our thoughts really can drive us towards, health and happiness, or to the other end, to like detriment and distress. So that means that the thoughts that we think, and therefore the feelings that we have, really impact the levels of stress and anxiety that we feel. And these levels in turn have a direct impact on our physical health and well-being. Because when we are stressed, our body goes into flight or fight mode because it can't tell the difference. I've talked about this before, but it can't tell the difference between modern stresses and stresses of the past, which were physical threats, things wanting to eat us. So stress of any sort, even if it's emotional and mental stress, we go into fight or flight response. And our body is trying to help us out, and so it starts shutting down functions that are not necessary to assist you in fighting or fleeing. So things like your digestive system and your immune system, which aren't going to help you fight something off or run from it. So your body starts shutting those down. And when it happens occasionally, not a big deal. But when you are living in a constant chronic state of stress and fear and negativity and anxiety, that means that your digestion, your immunity, those sorts of things are chronically compromised. And of course, that's going to start impacting our physical health and healing over time. So that's the first thing. And I suppose, oh, hello, Roxy. I suppose that's one of the practical reasons why it makes sense to try to be more positive more of the time, because it really is going to help your physical healing. And then, of course, as I said before, because what we think and feel affects our mood, and then that affects our behaviors and the actions that we take, focusing on the negative or the positive really does have an impact on our ability to focus on solutions versus the problem, and it can really impact our motivation to take action towards our healing goals, or vice versa. If we're focusing on the negative, it can really make us not want to take action towards our health and healing. Because I know for me, when I am focused on the negative, when I'm feeling negative, I think things like, why am I even doing this? What's even the point? This is a waste of time. This is a waste of money. This is a waste of energy. It's probably not even helping me. And I'm much more likely to give up on something in that state of mind than if I'm feeling and thinking more positively about it. And then also it's sending our body that message as well, that what we're doing isn't helping. We're probably not getting any better. It's probably just going to come back, or it's probably just going to get worse. And that's, while you may or may not believe that those messages have an impact on our body, it's, I think everyone can agree that it's definitely not going to help. So we want to try to, shift those messages that we're sending our body too, not just our minds, but, our physical bodies as well. Because I feel it when I'm more positive. I am more hopeful. I definitely feel more in control. I am not as overwhelmed, and I find it a lot easier to believe that I'm going to achieve the healing outcomes and that I want and maintain them over time, because I'm more expectant of that outcome. It just seems far more plausible when I'm in that positive state of mind. And I heard once that an optimistic mind is an honest mind. And I really like that, because I think in today's society, unfortunately, in general, we tend to put a lot more stock and a lot more belief in the negative outcomes. And it probably has something to do with, tempering our expectations, not wanting to be disappointed, wanting to be prepared, not being blindsided, not being seen as naive, perhaps. And unfortunately, it makes us way more likely to believe the negative outcomes, when in reality, the positive outcomes are just as likely. And so it is an incredibly honest undertaking to start believing in the positive outcomes and expecting those to happen instead. And that idea of naivety, I think, is one that people often associate with positivity. But staying positive doesn't mean that you are ignoring the difficulties or denying that there is a chance that it might not turn out the way we want to. We can still be realistic in that sense, that there are many possible outcomes here, good and bad. But it does mean consciously shifting our focus onto, as much of the time, onto thoughts that are supportive and conducive to our well-being and the progress of our healing. So this takes an awareness of thought and some effort, of course, and it's like strength training, but for your brain. So you have to increase your awareness of the thoughts that you're thinking and the feelings that those are generating. And then when you catch yourself being more negative, the goal is to shift and refocus onto happier, more hopeful thoughts. That is it for part 1 of this series on positivity and what it means to me to stay positive. Keep an eye out for part 2, where I will be diving deeper into this topic. And in the meantime, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Down here in one of these corners, there's a little icon. If you're looking for something in particular, head over to the channel, check out the playlist, search for whatever it is you might be looking for support in. And I will see you back here once again very soon for another Mental Health Monday. And in the meantime, happy healing.